ago, I saw an episode of Black Mirror that had this evil little dog running around, and instead of paying attention to the episode, I spent my time thinking about how I could build one. I tossed around the idea of using different things such as pneumatics, hydraulics, and all sorts of different mechanisms to keep the legs extremely slim and the body somewhat small. I finally realized that the most accessible option to get that kind of motion was RC servos. But that presented another problem. How would you keep the legs that slim with bulky servos installed inside them? Then it hit me. You don't have to mount the servos on the knee joint to move the knee joint. The same can be said for the ankle joints and so on. All you really need is a control cable that connects the servo to the part that the servo needs to control. I started thinking about all of the possibilities, such as you could build a single joint for a robot that moves like a ball joint and run it with just 2 servos. And that sounded cool. And then I started thinking, what if I could stack those ball joints and use 4 servos with 2 joints? Well, that's when the problem started. Because the control cables for the second joint would be affected by the position for the first joint, it would be nearly impossible to account for that using software or different weird configurations. Unless you were routing the cables through tubes. Then the tube would end at the previous joint and attach to the servo and to the joint that you're trying to control the position of. Then the position of the first joint is completely irrelevant to any other component in the system. The episode was over by this time, but the idea that arose from a tangent of a tangent was forever stuck in my head. I couldn't let go of this until I made it real, so I did. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I know what it looks like. It's hard to appreciate the amount of work that was put into this thing. I mean, look at it. There's a ton of moving parts. I designed, printed, and assembled the entire thing. But if you watch the channel, you probably already know that. So because of its appearance, I decided to name this machine Richard. It seemed appropriate. Richard has 8 separate sections that are all able to move completely independently in 2 different directions, like this. Each section of Richard has 4 tubes routed from it through the arm and to this distribution plate. Through each tube is a section of fishing line that directly connects the servo pulley to the section of the arm that it actually drives. So for example, if I were to turn this servo, you could see the section of the arm that this servo is responsible for moving. Every other section of this arm actually has its controls offset by 45 degrees. So if I move the next section, you'll notice that it's moving at an angle rather than straight forward and backwards. And that was caused by wanting to offset all of the cables to make it look nice. I'm sure you guys are asking yourselves, why would I build this thing? Well, because it's cool and disturbing and intriguing and weird. Like, hey, you ever seen one of these before? I bet not. You know, it's a really good conversation starter. When I first built it, a lot of people told me that they thought it looked a bit suggestive. I honestly don't see it. Nope. So what's it useful for? Lots of things. Let me show you. It could entertain you while you're reading the newspaper. You could program it to make you breakfast in the morning.
This thing is worthless. This ain't working very well.
Use it on your remote-controlled lawnmower to pick up sticks. Back up. You could automate cooking and use it to tenderize meat. Or it could help you start your next band. You know, one thing I did in my last video about this thing is I asked the viewers to send in their programs. I basically asked them to write a program to control this thing and send it in through the comment section. And people actually did that. So let's take a look at what some of these programs look like. That's interesting. I believe this one was written by Ollie from Printables. So let's see what he has written for this thing. So the mistake with this program was that commanded joint 0 to position Y -50, which is going to send it this way, I believe. And then all the other joints are commanded to 13. There's so much backlash in the mechanism that position 13 is hardly even bent. So that's why it seems like it's only really rotating around this base. And then there was 3 rotate -1080 commands. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so what happened there is that the original command was a go to 0 command, so it would 0 the whole thing, and then pause for 1/10 of a second, and then rotate 1080 degrees. But the arm is already straight up, so rotating it, you won't see it. Is that it? Yep, that's all this one does. It's very interesting. Didn't do much. Thanks for sending these in. Alright, so that was it for the program sent in by you guys. Thank you guys so much for sending them in. I really enjoyed that you guys actually did it. That was cool. But I guess I should have gave a bit more instructions on the backlash problem, and maybe that would have helped a lot. So sorry about that. I apologize. Hey! Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to come join me on Patreon. All of my patrons get access to my videos one day before anybody else gets to see them. So I hope you'll come and at least come check the page out so that you can enable me to keep building things like this. And I promise you, I will try my best not to make anything that looks like this ever again. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, thanks for watching.
Generation